If your product launch didn't go the way you planned, low adoption, poor sales, or internal backlash, then this video is for you. Failed launches don't just hurt your numbers, they rattle team confidence. But here's the good news. Failure can be some of your most valuable data if you know how to break it down. I'm going to show you how to run a clean post-mortem, extract the right insights, and rebuild momentum. It's not about spinning the data. It is about getting smarter fast. I don't know which of you needs to hear this, but picking apart the data to put a positive spin on the narrative is not what you need to be doing when a campaign fails. Don't do it. Accept it. Or you're just going to waste your time and resources trying to find green shoots or upsides or some glimmer of hope instead of using that time to plan your comeback strategy. The difference between true failure and slow traction is a small one, but here's what I mean. I look at two measures. I'm looking at quantity of sales and I am looking at trajectory over 3 months time span usually. So I would call it a failure if your overall sales are slower than expected and your conversion rates or your trajectory is low, not going in the right direction or flatline, beep, okay? That is a failure. But slow traction, on the other hand, shows slow sales, okay? Maybe they're lower than you expected, but strong conversion rates from awareness all the way through advocacy. That is slow traction. So instead of picking apart the data points, you are going to go back to your campaign objective. What were you trying to deliver? Were you trying to deliver sales? Were you trying to deliver new customers? Or were you trying to steal from the competition? Rooting yourself in the right data points will set you on the right course. Now, I can't be the only one who's seen the side glances between product pointing at marketing and saying it's marketing's fault, marketing pointing at product saying it's product's fault, and sales just sort of looking aggravated in between. I'm not the only one who's seen that, right? So here's how you avoid the blame game and get to some meaningful action. Have data-driven discussions using the metrics that are relevant for that campaign goal that we just talked about. So if the goal is steal customers from your competition, you want to pull data that answers questions like, how many customers switched from the competition's brand to our brand? You want to answer questions like, were they switching partially or completely? And those who were switching partially, did they try it once and bail, or did they continue using it? So these are the types of questions that you want to answer in this next phase to have those data-driven conversations instead of just pointing fingers across the table. Because it is much easier to have these somewhat heated conversations and beat up the data versus beating up your team. Because you're all on the same team trying to drive the best results for the business. So use the data instead of beating each other up. You're also going to want to make sure you are using consistent and repeatable formats to evaluate the launch stages. And so what that looks like for me is if the campaign goal is to drive awareness or consideration, those top of funnel metrics, I'm usually looking at social media impressions or surveys and things like that. If the campaign objective is more sales driven or loyalty driven, then I'm more likely to look at sales data or behavior data to see that movement. But you want to be consistent in how you evaluate each of those stages. Then what you want to do is get crystal clear about what assumptions went into your plan initially and which ones didn't hold up. Let me give you an example. I was with a client and they had launched a new product in California. About a week later, the VP comes up and they're asking, why are sales so slow? And we were able to look at the data. In this case, it was some focus groups that we had run to show that awareness of this new product was low. It was like 2%. Nobody knew that it had launched. And because we did focus groups, we knew why. It was because, one, it launched during a holiday season and the product wasn't something that was sought after during the holidays. And two, it was launched while half of the state was having some serious natural disasters. I think they were having fires at the time. So between those two things, nobody knew about this new product. So it wasn't a product issue. It wasn't a marketing issue. It was a timing issue. When I started in market research in 2007, I wish someone would have told me this, that there are 4 ways that a product launch can fail. Just 4. Product, timing, positioning, or delivery. That's it. A product failure can look like having trial, so your marketing's working to get them to try the product, but no repeat purchase. So they're not loving it, it's not meeting their needs, and they don't come back for more. So an example of timing failure is what we just went over, where there was no awareness because the product was launched at the wrong time. Positioning failure, and this one's really interesting, is when your target audience keeps saying that your product is too expensive. A lot of people say, oh, well, I need to rush and lower my pricing. Not true. You will always find someone who wants the best of the best and is willing to pay for that. So if people in your target audience are saying it's too expensive, that's a positioning product. They're not seeing the value that you bring, not a pricing problem. And then the 4th way that a product can fail is delivery failure. And so that can look like out of stocks, where you are just not keeping pace with the market demand. So those 4 things, that's it. So when you are looking at the data, you're going to want to use a problem-solving framework like the MECE issue tree to not just look at one-off errors, but to look at what is the systemic problem here. What is the underlying issue? And again, it stacks up to those 4. And once you've identified what the issue really is, you're going to look into the data again to say, where does the data show that our assumptions were correct? And where does the data show that our assumptions were not? And why did we miss that? Hey, if this is helping you think more clearly about how to recover after a failed launch, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I will be regularly breaking down strategies that help product teams and founders navigate the complexity and make better decisions. So if you want to lead with clarity instead of chaos, go ahead and subscribe now. This is the question that never really goes away in my industry. What does all of this data mean for the business? And that's what we're going to head into next. How do you extract those high quality lessons from all of the data you've just collected? So you're going to start building a data-driven narrative, connecting your lessons learned with the strategic implications for the business. So each of those lessons need to, 1, be strategic, and 2, need to be reusable, not reactive. Think at this point, you are creating a playbook for repeatable success. And so you're going to have each of those data-driven insights from the previous campaign connected to a lesson learned. What did you learn? Did you learn that we didn't launch this at the right time? Okay, that's your lesson. And then you're going to connect a 3rd piece to it. What will you do differently with the next campaign to make sure it's successful? So maybe you have your marketing go out 3 months before your product launch so that you know the market is aware that this product is coming before it hits shelves. So that's just an example. Connect the insight to the lesson learned and how you're going to do it differently to ensure success for the business. I'll also say it's important when you're drawing these lessons to avoid overcorrecting because of just one failure. So you don't need to start from scratch. Double down even on what worked, but what didn't work, you're going to make small changes so that you understand how each change in the campaign process and campaign strategy improves or doesn't improve your outcome. So by making those changes one at a time, you can see how they move the needle. Here's the reminder that I need to hear, so maybe you need to hear it too. Failed launches don't just hurt the business, they hurt your team's confidence in your leadership. I know, it hurts. Internal teams, investors, whatever stakeholders you have, they need transparency from you in this moment. Go ahead and acknowledge your failure and show how you've learned from it and what you're going to change going forward. Recently, OpenAI did a brilliant job of this when they came out and apologized for creating a version of ChatGPT that was more cheerleader than assistant. So OpenAI came out with this apology and their sales were still going strong as a result of it. And more people were interested in doing business with them because of the transparency, honesty, and restored credibility that they brought to the table. So in your narrative, you're going to say what happened, what lessons you learned, and how you're going to use them to show growth instead of weakness. So you've pitched this new plan to your stakeholders, gotten alignment, and now you can focus on delivery, right? No, wrong. Don't keep pushing. I know the temptation is to move into execution, but you need to recalibrate. And here's what I mean. Take a step back and think through the success metrics that you were using before with the previous campaign. Are they still even relevant now that you understand what success will look like with this new campaign? So take a step back and redefine what success looks like now. Now that you are wiser, now that you are smarter and set for more success, what metrics do you need to be tracking now? Will you measure progress differently this time? And what are those things that are now unacceptable to ignore? So my friends, that is how you bounce back from a failed launch, by extracting real insight, restoring trust, and rebuilding from data instead of ego. But if you're serious about getting this right, YouTube thinks it knows what is the perfect next video for you. You should see it on the screen somewhere around here. Go ahead and click it, and let's keep building your recovery plan.